is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Tanzania has begun implementing a nationwide ban on the use of plastic bags. The ban comes into force this week with the Plastic Carrier Bags Regulation Act of 2019 prohibiting the production, importation, sale and the use of all single-use plastic bags. The move now follows similar steps by Rwanda and neighboring Kenya in an attempt to tackle the plastic pollution menace. Under Tanzania's new measures, anyone in possession of plastic bags can be slapped with a $90 fine, and those caught manufacturing plastic bags also face jail time. But what effect will this polythene bag ban have on Tanzania's economy? And what impact will this new law also have on the country's environment? I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. By 2050, there will be more plastic waste in the world's oceans than fish. That's according to a 2016 report by the World Economic Forum. With 8 million metric tons of plastic waste discharged to the oceans each year, the world's marine life face an existential threat. A threat which extends to ocean economies that contribute an estimated $1.5 trillion to the world's GDP each year. Today, gigantic patches of garbage float around the high seas, with those such as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch estimated to be 3 times the size of France. In a global effort to contain plastic waste pollution, China in 2017 banned the importation of 24 varieties of solid waste, including certain types of plastic. The European Parliament also moved to eradicate a range of single-use plastics such as straws, cotton buds and cutlery by 2021. Currently, Africa is at the front line in terms of laws against plastic bags, with up to 34 African countries having enforced some form of restriction on the production, importation, sale and the use of polythene bags. Tanzania now joins this growing list as the race to contain plastic pollution gains momentum. Well, this week saw Tanzanian President John Pombe Magufuli make a visit to a fish market in Dar es Salaam, carrying a kikapu, the local name for a shopping basket. The president's visit signaled the high-level backing the newly enforced ban has in the East African country. CGTN's Daniel Kijo filed this report from Dar es Salaam.
The ban on plastic bags came into force on June 1st as part of Tanzania's effort to tackle plastic pollution. It follows similar steps by others in the East African region, including Kenya and Rwanda, to phase out single-use plastics. During a recent site visit, the country's president warned the business community against taking advantage of the situation.
My call to Tanzanians: don't be forced to buy the bags. If you're able to carry your goods in a newspaper, then do so. Because if you remembered you need to go buy fish, why would you not remember to carry a bag?
The new legislation stipulates that manufacturing plastic bags in Tanzania can lead to a 2-year prison sentence or a fine of up to $400,000. The government says a lack of alternatives at this initial stage is to be expected, but that should change as more producers join the alternative bag market. Tanzania becomes the 34th African country to ban the production, importation, use and sale of plastic bags. As Tanzania tries to tackle its severe plastic waste problem, its citizens are still adjusting.
For now, these small bags are 22 cents. So if we sell things for 100 cents, buying a bag of 22 cents is very costly for the customer, almost impossible.
These bags are not like the old ones. These ones don't tear easily. You can carry your things well. I don't see any challenge.
The bags are still small. The government should reduce the prices of the bags to like 4 cents and make the bags bigger.
The United Nations Environmental Programme reports that only 9% of the 9 billion tons of plastic produced in the world has been recycled. Tanzania has joined the fight against a global problem, and officials say this is just the beginning of dealing with many other forms of plastic pollution. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Daniel Kijo there in Dar es Salaam with that report. Now, I'm joined by my expert panel of guests to break down this ban and its implications. Dr. Simon Gituku, a research and fiscal manager at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Dr. Gashuru Wakarenge, he's the head of the Secretariat at the Green Belt Movement. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Talk Africa today. Quite an interesting development coming out of Tanzania, of course joining other African countries that have already instituted a ban on plastics on the continent. Let me start off with you, Dr. Karenge. What is your reaction to Tanzania's move?
I would say congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for joining this bandwagon. In fact, we would have liked them to start earlier, but it's good that they have done it now. Now we can join forces with our sister friend, our neighbor there, to get rid of this menace, because it is bad. It is terrible for the environment. And we congratulate Tanzania. And I hope they will continue step by step going to the next levels, so we can all join together, the East African countries, Africa and the whole world, to get rid of
We'll look at those
menace.
step-by-step processes
Yes.
a little later. But Dr. Gituku, let me get your thoughts though. What's your thoughts on Tanzania's move?
I think it's a follow-up on global trade. Today I was reading a report by UNEP that there are 1 to 7 countries that have instituted legal action on plastics, and 27 have banned. In the East African region, Rwanda started, and then Kenya, and now Tanzania. And in Kenya, the manufacturers who have invested in alternative packaging have indicated the challenge of illicit trade because of porous borders. So we believe that with the Tanzania, such a porous plastic coming through the porous borders will be reduced.
So coming back to you and to the Kenya Association of Manufacturers experience there from the Kenyan ban, going back to 2017, let's look at the impact to the Tanzanian economy, though, medium to long term and the short term. What will be the impact, though?
The immediate impact, depending on how the consultations were undertaken, will be some manufacturers may be forced to close down. About a week and a half ago, we were collecting data from sectors in the manufacturing sector, and 4 manufacturers had closed down because of the ban. That is one of the immediate outcome. And with it comes with job losses and revenue losses to the government. And also, if there are no alternative to packaging, will have severe implications on small traders, especially in the grocery sector. Yeah, so there are those immediate effects of the ban.
Dr. Karenge, we are listening to the economic impact of Tanzania, though. Does that come as a concern at all, or are you confident that the environmental contribution will far outweigh the economic downturn?
I think so, because if the job losses, of course, will inevitably be there, but the gains in the long term on the environment far outweighs the short losses that we may have.
Right, and just following up on that, Dr. Gituku, because in 2017, the Association of Manufacturers had raised concerns about the economic impact of the plastic bans on the Kenyan economy, and talked about a loss of about 60,000 jobs in about 179 plastic-related industries. How has that come to pan out?
Manufacturers have divested into other areas. For example, non-woven bags. There are others who have invested in paper bags. So they have invested in that. And what we also advocate is policy stability. A manufacturer divests from plastic into non-woven bags. Then all of a sudden there's a threat on non-woven bags, though there is a court injunction. So we need such policy stability so that we have a clear plan on how are we going to transition, how is manufacturer going to transition, improve the quality. All those issues are raised and agreed time frame.
So Kenya has gone through this process. Rwanda has gone through this process. Let us look at Tanzania's case, Dr. Karenge here. How do you see the enforcement, given that the rest of the region has already implemented their bans? What do you see as some of the challenges that Tanzania is likely to face in terms of enforcement and in terms of success of its plastic ban?
Well, we can draw from the experience of Kenya. One of the challenges we got, first there has to be a political will. That's number one. So if the politicians, the political leaders are not committed to that, forget it, it will not work. Now, assuming you have the political goodwill, then the public, particularly the manufacturers and the users, they are already using it. They have had that habit, and breaking habit takes a while. So the other challenges we'll have is manufacturers, unscrupulous manufacturers will continue manufacturing behind the scenes, and users will still continue using them for a while until there is concerted effort to ensure that does not happen. Kenya has taken a good step. It has been there for some time, but still you find plastic bags out there. Where are they coming from? Either they are being imported from outside, or some unscrupulous manufacturers are illegally manufacturing them behind the scenes and selling in kiosks. So implementation, you see, one of the major problems of our governments, including Kenya and others, you can come up with very, very good policies, world-class policies, but implementation is wanting. So coming up with a good policy is just one step, probably quarter the story. 3/4 of the story is implementing and making sure that it is what you have done, or what you have agreed, and what you have decided is being implemented on the ground.
It does seem that manufacturers remain a stumbling block to full enforcement of the law.
I would agree with that assertion, because manufacturers, their responsibility is to produce, but responsibly. So the enforcement agents have their role. Manufacturers have diversified into alternative packaging. They have raised concern about imports or plastic bags in the Kenyan market, and they don't know where they are coming from. So there is issue of the porous borders that we have to deal with, and if at all some could be imported. So how to stop that so that they can recoup their investment? So as I have indicated, manufacturers is one of the partner in the fight against this menace, but they are also important stakeholders, because it has been referred to as a menace. It is also an opportunity to create jobs for the youth, who 85% of people in Kenya without jobs are youth. That is an opportunity. Let the government, county government, national government, manufacturers are doing their part, convert this menace into an opportunity for creating jobs and even dealing with the environment challenge that we are referring to.
Right, we are going to continue this discussion in just a moment. For now, we'll take a short break, but do stay tuned. The conversation continues on Talk Africa in a moment. We'll be right back.
China Global Television Network. From broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, and Nairobi. A unique global perspective. 6 channels and a video content service. News when you want it and where you want it. On TV screens, websites, mobile platforms, and social media. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Talk Africa. My guests still with me, Dr. Simon Gituku from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and Dr. Gashuru Wakarenge from the Green Belt Movement, both with me in studio to unpack the latest plastic bag ban in the region. Dr. Karega, let's start off with you in this section because we've talked about the alternatives to, to the plastics in the region, what Kenya has done, what Rwanda has done. But let's talk about other alternatives of management, though. When you look at statistics, for instance, which indicate that out of the percentage of plastics that end up in oceans across the world, across the continent, 8% is from Africa, 86% from Asia, probably 1% from North America. As an environmentalist, though, yes, do you think that the problem, the challenge, is a question of managing the plastic waste, or is it a question of the environment is completely degraded, so let us put this plastic ban in place?
I think it's the issue is how do you manage what you have? Secondly, why do you in the first place put it there? So the first thing is to stop the source of how that is coming. And then the little that is there, find innovative ways of managing it so that it is minimum. So that we don't have waste, a lot of waste going to even do more harm to the environment.
So in your view, though, were all the avenues exhausted before the plastic ban came into place?
No, they were not. I don't think there were a lot of other environmental friendly alternatives that were ignored. People always wanting to adopt what they call modern, which is actually a retrospective. It's a step backward to how we were managing, our ancestors were managing the environment. If you go culturally, how we were managing the environment, we didn't have plastics, yet we used to carry things. How are we doing that? We had bags that were biodegradable, made from sisal, and others made from other things. Even bags were made from sisal, something that once you have used it, it will be biodegradable and it will do no harm to the environment. So it is this modernity that came that is, I think, is not good for the environment. Right. Now we are realizing a bit late in the day that what we embraced was actually not good for us.
Dr. Gituku.
My take is that it is an environmental management issue, that waste management. And when you look at the whole debate about management of the environment, plastic waste is one aspect of it. We have to also to look at other aspects of the environment. The forest cover, energy consumption, which energy are we using, water use. So it is multifaceted, that concept of management of the environment. And also consumer education is critical, because the manufacturer, when they produce their plastic, they don't tell the user to dump it. Also, the county government, how do they collect the refuse? Have they segregated between biodegradable, paper, all forms of waste? We don't have that.
Let's hear from the environmentalists, though. Are you advocating for alternative models of waste management as opposed to a blanket ban on plastics?
Well, the manufacturers are experts in innovation. So, and we are not short of brains. So what I would want to agree with him that yes, we must have alternatives, because how are we doing it, and how are we going to do it? I can give you an example. For example, in the Green Belt, we used to use plastic potting bags where you put the seedlings and then transport it for planting. We are coming up with alternatives of how we are no longer going to use those plastic bags, but we are having to think hard to try and get alternatives. If anybody is affected by that plastic bag, it's probably the Green Belt, because we used to use a lot of plastic bags for planting seedlings. But we are happy with that inconvenience because it challenges our mind to come up with an alternative. So that's what I would still encourage our manufacturers. Yes, let's have a conversation, but let us support each other where we can, but alternatives are there and can be good.
Dr. Gituku, the Tanzanian law is quite expansive. It includes the prohibition of the import, export, manufacturing, sale, storage, and supply and use of plastic carrier bags regardless of their thickness. Kenya's president has also recently announced an expansion of the ban policy in Kenya, which would include plastic bottles and other plastics in designated areas. Your thoughts?
So what we will say is that manufacturers support a clean environment, and such areas he has indicated are of great importance to Kenya in terms of wildlife. A lot of money is generated through tourism. The forests, we know they are receding, and that is where we have our water towers. Water come for hydropower and for industrial use. So what we can say is that let's continue with the conversation. I know he has given 1 year period. Let's continue with the engagement. We manufacturers support a clean environment.
Your thoughts, Dr. Karega?
I think it's good. And as I said earlier, I think it should even be expanded, even to these other common places. But in the wildlife, this is good because some of those animals eat those plastic bags and plastic bottles. And because these plastics are not digestible, when they go into the stomach, they are harmful to that animal. So eventually that animal will die, which is not good for our tourism and for what, and even for the environment and what we advocate. So I wrote the president and I support this move that he has taken, and I encourage him to do it even, to expand it even further outside the parks, even within the public, so that we start cleaning our environment and getting rid of these plastics. They are a menace to our environment.
Dr. Gituku, you're talking about manufacturers continuing the conversation and the dialogue and finding a middle ground to the whole question of plastics. From a manufacturer's point of view, though, how should the policy ban on plastics be handled? How should the whole question of plastics on the continent, in the region, how should that be handled?
In Kenya, there is National Solid Waste Management Bill and Policy that will give a holistic approach towards the issue of solid waste management, which is a menace. And I would wish to reiterate that dialogue is the way. And if there is contemplation about banning, inform manufacturers in advance, and let's have that conversation so that we don't shock the system of the manufacturer and actually shocking the economy.
Dr. Karega?
I'm not opposed to conversation and dialogue. I think that's a good idea. But we should continue engaging, but still engaging on how do we deepen this ban? How do we get more of these plastics out? Not conversation on how that more time be given or let's give us a moratorium, let's reverse this. No. The conversation should be, we want to deepen this ban. How do we move forward from here? What are the alternatives? What are you manufacturers doing in your R&D departments to get alternatives? We want to get rid of this as soon as we can. We are late. Environmentally, we are late. So if we can get rid of these, then the conversation I would like to see is how are you preparing
right.
for this? It's coming, it's inevitable. How are you preparing for this? How are you prepared for this? What alternatives have you put in place?
One of the other issues that, as we wind up the program, one of the other issues that has come up is after enforcement, what do you do with the public culture? What do you do with the impunity that perhaps the citizens have been showing regarding how to handle their own plastic waste? And to take the Kenya and Tanzania's example, though, they have put up quite punitive measures in terms of jail terms and fines of up to $40,000. Is that realistic? Is that a deterrent enough?
Okay, that is part of it. It's part of the story. I think here we need a stick and a carrot. We need first to educate. We need to educate the public, because the problem is all here in the mind. Sometimes you feel sorry for somebody who appears to, that they should know. They are driving a car, and all of a sudden somebody in front of you toasts a bottle outside on the tarmac. I mean, that tells you a lot about that person. So that person needs not... The main thing that he needs is not really the jail, it's education. They should be educated, and I think the media, you are doing a good job. I would like to ask you to continue doing much more to educate our people, because that impunity, feeling that I can do anything that I want, I mean, I can throw out, that bottle will be picked by an animal, it will not, and it will be harmful to the environment.
Right.
So I think it's good. There should be both punitive, and there should also be education on the public.
Dr. Gituku, as manufacturers get ready for the alternatives, though, in terms of the punitive measures that governments come up, are they realistic, though?
I would say that consumers and users of this plastic are important for the war to have a clean environment is to be won. We should start with the education system. We have now the competence-based curriculum. It should be instilled in Kenyans from the very beginning that being patriotic and conserving the environment, not littering the environment, is a good thing. And is inculcated. And then for those who are already old, like ourselves, we can have those measures. I would support such measures to deter. I think Kenya can learn from Rwanda how to do that, and even having a day to clean up the mess which has been caused by littering. Another important aspect is the public transport system. They are supposed to have containers to put such materials, plastic and whatever kind of litter, from the public transport vehicles. So legal education, supporting infrastructure is necessary so that the war can be won in terms of having a clean environment.
Dr. Gituku and Dr. Karenga, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for your insights on the plastic bans across the continent. We'll leave it there for the moment, but thank you to my guests for sharing their insights. Dr. Simon Gituku, a research and fiscal manager at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Dr. Gashuru Wakarenga, head of the Secretariat at the Greenbelt Movement. Remember to keep the conversation going online through CGTN's Facebook and Twitter handles. And you can also catch this and previous episodes of Talk Africa on our YouTube playlist and the CGTN Africa website. Do tune in again next week. From me, Beatrice Marshall, and the team in Nairobi. Goodbye.